It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at Group C, Nigeria, Tunisia, Uganda, and Tanzania. Here we go! It's the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada, Series 31. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Connor. And today we are looking at Group C for the 2025 African Cup Tournament. This group is made up of Nigeria, Tunisia, Uganda, and Tanzania.
Right, and just a note on where we're at in our mediacasts. After previewing the preliminary stage for the World Cup qualifying for the Asian region, we decided we were being too ambitious to attempt to preview qualification for all regions. So now we're restricting ourselves to the tournaments themselves. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup.
And we also did a mediacast introducing ourselves. It covers some of the priorities and quirks of what we do. It also has a quiz, which is still live, and winners will get a mention on the mediacast covering the team of their choice.
Right, and after this African Cup, we're going to tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So stay tuned for previews of that. We plan to start in the springtime of 2026.
Yeah, so let's look at the three sections of this mediacast in outline.
Okay, in part one, we'll introduce the teams in the group, give the location, population of each.
In part two, we'll do an overview of each team's history and recent form, with a bit of a focus on the regional cup, since that's what we're looking at here.
Right, and in part three, we will have a comparison of the teams in terms of ranking, head-to-head record, and chances of winning the group. And we're going to end with a discussion of their prospects and our predictions. So before we begin, Connor, do you have something that'll get me into the group? A hook.
You know what? I struggled to connect these four teams, but I'll tell you this. Last tournament, or from the last tournament, one of these teams was a finalist. Two teams finished last in their group, and there was one absentee. So all those campaigns ended in disappointment for some reason or another. So we'll discuss at the end what success looks like for each of these teams.
Okay, am I supposed to guess which one is which?
You can if you want.
Okay, one finalist. Guess that would be Nigeria, reached the final.
Correct.
Two teams have finished last in their groups.
That's right.
Oh, okay. I guess that's got to be Tunisia, and Uganda didn't make the cup, so Tanzania there. I think I got it.
You got it.
All right. Okay. Well, it helps that I, prepare a little bit, so I knew about Tunisia. No, I actually had forgotten about Tunisia. I knew about Tanzania being in the cup last time. Okay, let's jump right into it and introduce Nigeria as a country.
Yeah, so Nigeria is a relatively large country on the Gulf of Guinea in the Atlantic Ocean. If you think of Africa as kind of a number 7, it's on the inside bend of the 7. In terms of population, there are 227 million people living in Nigeria. That's the largest country in Africa. It's actually the largest by far. It's got about 100 million more people than the second place Ethiopia. And their nickname is the Super Eagles.
Wow, I know we've covered Nigeria before, so you've probably told us that information, but I am shocked anew at the size of that country.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to Tunisia.
So Tunisia is a small country in northern Africa, a sandwich between Algeria and Libya, and then with a significant coastline on the Mediterranean Sea, just south of Italy. Its population is 12 million. That's 31st in Africa, so it's kind of a mid-sized country. And their nickname is the Carthage Eagles. So two different eagles going head-to-head.
All right, let's see if we have any more eagles coming up. We go to Uganda.
So Uganda is a landlocked country in kind of mid-Africa, right on the equator. Its neighbors include South Sudan to the north, Kenya to the east, Tanzania and Rwanda to the south, and DR Congo to the west. So again, just kind of sandwiched in the middle there. It's not a huge country, but its population is 48 million. That ranks 9th in Africa, so relatively population dense country. And their nickname, not an eagle, but it's the cranes. So the national bird of Uganda, which appears on their flag.
Right, and your sister visited Uganda, was it last year or the year before?
Yeah, last year, and been there twice, actually. Very nice country, she said.
Okay, cool. Actually, she brought me a shirt from Uganda, but also one from Tanzania. So I was a bit troubled as to what I should do with this group. I wore Uganda for the last group and Tanzania for this one. Let's go to Tanzania.
Yeah, so Tanzania, neighbors of Uganda. It's a large country, again, kind of in mid-Africa. It's south of Uganda and the equator, and then it's got a coastline on the Indian Ocean. The population of Tanzania, is 66 million. That ranks 5th in Africa, so a large country.
Yeah, very large.
And their nickname is the Taifa Stars, and Taifa translates to nation in Swahili.
Oh, okay. I was expecting it to be some kind of bird to keep with the theme, but I guess not. I'm surprised the equator is that far down. I thought it was more close to the top of Africa.
Yeah, no, it goes right kind of through the middle of the lower half. So it's always the way maps are pictured. Most of the maps we see is above the equator, so it can be deceptive at times.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's you threw out some numbers there. Let's look at them in comparison to each other. So, oh, wow, I have to make Nigeria big here.
Yeah,
it's so big.
Massive country.
So by comparison, Tanzania is smaller, Uganda smaller yet, and Tunisia very small by comparison.
Yeah, just a quarter of the population of Uganda. So
okay,
it's small.
Maybe I've overdone it there. What do you think?
No, it looks good.
Okay, let's move on to section 2, and we're going to look at the teams here. I just want to mention that in the first graphic, I know it's kind of difficult to see with just giving an overview. So if you're looking at the YouTube video, I just urge you to kind of look at the green, which is passing the group stage, blue, which is reaching the cup but knocked out in the first round, or red, not successfully qualifying. Okay, so we're going to begin with a look at the general participations and achievements.
Yeah, so Nigeria's first entry into the World Cup was in 1962, but they joined the African-Asian boycott in 1966. They've participated consistently from 1970. Their participation in African Cup was patchy until that time also. They joined only 2 of the 5 cups after their first entry in 1962, and participated consistently only from 1972.
Right, and that's in gray on the graphic, actually, not entering or withdrawing. Okay, in terms of achievement, Nigeria first reached the African Cup in 1994 and qualified for 6 of the 7 editions after that. In half of those tournaments, they even passed the group stage. It's among the best records for an African team. They have won the African Cup 3 times. More impressive still, they've reached the finals 8 times and finished in the top 3 16 times. They've only been knocked out at the group stage twice in their African Cup history, and the last time that happened was in 1982. So pretty impressive record there. Let's zoom in a little bit and look at the World Cup record in overview.
So Nigeria was unremarkable in World Cup play in the early years. Out of their first 7 campaigns, they only legitimately came close in 1970, finishing a point behind Morocco, 2 draws with Sudan taking its toll there. Even though they reached the final round 2 times besides, they were not that close. For example, in 1982, they reached a playoff final with Algeria, but lost both legs. In 1994, though, they finally made it, having been dominant in Africa for almost 20 years. They shined there, finishing first in their group ahead of eventual winners Argentina and reaching the round of 16 where they went to extra time with Italy but lost. They reached the Cup 6 of the next 7 times, narrowly losing out to Angola in 2006, which is the one edition they missed. In their second Cup in 1998, they also did well, finishing first in the group again, but fell heavily to Denmark in the round of 16. 2002 and 2010 saw them earning only 1 point, though, tying England and South Korea respectively. But in 2014, they passed the group stage for a third time, losing to France in the round of 16. In 2018, they managed only win over Iceland and third place in the group stage behind eventual finalist Croatia, as well as Argentina, who they had met and lost to in the group stage, actually of 5 of their 6 World Cups.
Wow.
We'll look at their 2022 and 2026 campaigns in more detail shortly.
Okay, so pretty successful there in World Cup play. And let's look at their impressive African Cup in overview.
So Nigeria qualified for the second African Cup they entered in 1963, but they remained a weak and middling team until 1976, failing to qualify in 3 of their 4 entries. Since then, however, they've arguably been the best team in Africa, finishing 3rd or better 14 of the 16 times they have qualified from 1976 to 2013. They did, however, miss 4 cups during that time, 2 as a result of protests over apartheid South Africa hosting in 1996, and 2 failures in qualifications, those in 1986 and 2012. Their 3 title wins were in 1980, 1994, and 2013. In that light, African Cups after 2010 were a disaster, with 3 non-qualifications out of 4 from 2012 to 2017. Wow. Oddly, those sandwiched a title win in the 1 cup they did reach, which was 2013. They've since worked towards righting the ship. A 3rd place finish in 2019 honors their past, but a round of 16 result in 2021 is a bit below their expectations. And then we'll see how they fared in 2023.
All right. Well, in summary of their strength then, that's our last section here. Nigeria is not among the oldest of the African teams, and as Connor said, they were slow in developing. Several withdrawals and non-entries hampered their growth, as did not reaching the Cup in the early years. Only in 1963 did they qualify and were knocked out at the group stage there. They turned a corner in 1976 and, with few exceptions, have been a top-tier team since. It was slow in coming in the World Cup too. It was almost 20 years later that dominance in regional play showed with a World Cup appearance. Their performance at that level was impressive for an African team in the 1990s, but in recent times, reaching the Cup or even advancing one step beyond the group stage is not enough. And Nigeria's next step is to assert itself as a top or even second-tier team at the world level. Ghana and Morocco now have gone further than them into the finals, so an argument for them as the most successful African team on the world stage is debatable. Cameroon and Egypt have more African Cup titles, so although Nigeria's overall record can be seen as the best in Africa, it requires a bit more polish in terms of titles to be fully convincing. Post-2010 was the only poor period at the regional level, apart from the early years, but they, just as they are correcting that, they are losing a bit of ground in their World Cup play. And let's go to the World Cup play and see how they did in 2022.
Yeah, so they received a bye in round 1 of 3, which was a preliminary round. Nigeria then went all away games, but struggled at home. They beat Liberia in the first game, but lost on a late goal to Central African Republic. Wow. And then tied Cape Verde in the final game. But they nevertheless finished first in round 2 of 3. They then lost to Ghana in the round of 3 playoff, tying scoreless away but 1-1 at home and losing on the away goals rule. So a narrow defeat, but failing to make the 2022 World Cup.
Yeah, pretty disappointing because they are pretty much regular qualifiers now. Let's take a look at the 2023 African Cup.
Yeah, so in qualifying, they lost at home to Guinea-Bissau, but otherwise won all their games to finish first in the qualifying group. Sierra Leone and Sao Tome and Principe, the other teams. In the cup, they tied Equatorial Guinea, but beat host Ivory Coast and Guinea-Bissau to finish second in the group stage. Growing increasingly imperious, they beat Cameroon, Angola, then in the semifinals, South Africa on penalties, before losing to host Ivory Coast in the final, a team they beat in the group stage. But that is the reason for their second place finish.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Ivory Coast getting the better of them in the end there. Another bit of a, not to focus on the negative here, but another bit of a shocking loss at home there to Guinea-Bissau in qualifying.
Yeah, I definitely picked that out. You know, Central African Republic, Guinea-Bissau, those are not teams they should be losing to at home.
Yeah. It seems more a matter of complacency when I see that.
Yeah, I mean, in both cases, it didn't really harm their overall chances or their overall success in getting out of the group stage. So, yeah, perhaps a bit of complacency setting in.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the African Cup 2025 qualifying, the qualification campaign for this tournament.
So Nigeria is quite consistent in qualifying. They stayed in first place all the way, besting second place Benin, though they were bested by Rwanda, losing to them at home. There's another one for our stats. Though it was in the last game and they had already secured first place. And then otherwise they beat Libya twice. Or actually the away leg was awarded. But
yeah, that's right.
All the same, they finished first in the qualifying group and comfortably qualified.
Yeah. And well, here they are. Let's take a look at the 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign.
So Nigeria began with a home draw with pot 6 Lesotho.
Good Lord.
Yeah, not a loss, but would feel like it. And they went on to tie their next two at home, as well as losing to Benin on the road. So they were in 5th place out of 6 after 5 games. That's halfway through the campaign. They did win 3 of the last 4, however, leapfrogging Benin in the last game to finish second in the group stage. They were tied on points with Benin, but ahead of them, just ahead of them and behind South Africa, who were the group winners and whom they tied twice. Nigeria also tied Zimbabwe twice, but really it was just losing the one game against Benin that ensured they had enough points to finish among the top 4 second-place finishers and advance to a playoff.
Wow, that's a narrow win in the group, 17 points tied with Benin. And and then narrowly reaching. Where were they amongst the second-place teams?
I think they were the one that just squeaked in. I think they were the 4th-ranked second-place team with the top 4 advancing to a playoff. But that's going to be a very competitive playoff. They play they'll have to be the best of 4 other African teams, and then they'll still have to get through an intercontinental playoff. So it's a long road ahead for Nigeria if they want to get to the World Cup.
Yeah, I should have put those upcoming games on the graphic, but as you say, they have to win a playoff in Africa and then an intercontinental playoff. So they did drop the ball in this qualification.
Yeah, we talked about them dropping points at home, but not costing them. But here it did. Had they beaten Zimbabwe at home or Lesotho at home, both games they tied, they would have actually topped the group because it was very close at the top. So, they weren't able to. They finished second, but they weren't able to win the group because of some of those poor results.
Yeah, but the ending does show they have the talent to turn it on. When they need to. I guess we'll talk about that at the end, whether they did, but they certainly have the talent to.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to the end of Nigeria. We move on to our second team, Tunisia. starting with an overview of their participation and achievements.
So, like Nigeria, Tunisia joined World Cup qualification in 1962. They withdrew in 1966, again as part of that boycott that many nations took part in, but they otherwise participated consistently. They joined the African Cup in the same year, 1962, but withdrew from 4 cups between 1968 and 74, as well as in 1980. However, they have participated consistently since.
Oh, okay, sorry. I forgot I was supposed to do that part. Let's talk about their achievements then. Tunisia has reached the World Cup finals 7 times. In 1978, they became the 4th African team to qualify for a World Cup, and they qualified for 3 in a row from 1998 to 2006, and have recently repeated that feat. In regional competition, Tunisia has the longest string of consecutive appearances in the African Cup, having never failed to qualify since 1994. They have finished in the top 4 in 6 African Cups, with second place finishes in 1965 and 1996, and a single title win when they hosted in 2004. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit on their World Cup record.
So, despite their 6 appearances at the World Cup finals, Tunisia have yet to advance beyond the group stage. 1978 was their best performance, where they went 1-1-1, beating Mexico and tying West Germany. But they managed only a draw in each of the 3 appearances in the 2000s. They did slightly better than that in 2018 with a single win, and 2022 matched their best performance. In qualifying, aside from the successful 1978 qualifying, they didn't come close in the early years and didn't reach the final round until 1986. They were a consistent contender after that, coming close in the following 2 cups, falling at the last hurdle to Algeria in 1986 and Cameroon in 1994. Their qualifications were commanding in 2002 and 2006, finishing 5 points or more above the second place finisher. 2006 was much tighter, just 1 point ahead of local rivals Morocco. They were also close in 2010 and 2014, finishing a point behind Nigeria in a group stage in 2010 and losing to Cameroon in a final round knockout in 2014. Successful qualifications in the next 3 campaigns mean they either qualified or came close in every campaign since 1994. And that argument can be stretched back as far as 1982.
Wow, very consistent there. Let's take a look at their African Cup history, where the consistency really stands out.
So, having not entered the first 2 editions of the African Cup, Tunisia met with some success over the next 3. Qualifying was hard enough given that it was a 4-team tournament, so reaching the Cup was perhaps the real achievement, and the 3rd place finish in 1962 then not as impressive as it sounds. Nevertheless, 3 successful qualifications with the 2nd place finish as hosts in 1965 was a good early period, especially in light of not reaching the Cup again until 1978. Failing to qualify was mostly a consequence of not entering or withdrawing, but 2 qualifications in 1978 and 1982 to the now 8-team tournament was another good period, especially in light of trying and failing to qualify for the next 5 cups, even in 1992 when the tournament expanded to 12 teams. They qualified in 1994 by dint of hosting, but failed to pass the group stage in that edition. Reaching the Cup became that much easier in 1996 when it expanded to 16 teams, but their consistency in doing so every time since is unsurpassed. They finished 2nd in that 1996 edition, and that result remains their best outside of hosting. Their best result overall is when they hosted in 2004. So from that time, the quarterfinals became a ceiling for them, although they reached it twice as often as being knocked out at the group stage. In 2019, the Cup expanded to 24 teams, and as in 1996, the expansion years proved a good one for them as they finally broke through that ceiling with a 4th place finish.
All right, well, we'll see if they can carry on. there. So let's go to go to the overall strength before we look at the recent period. So Tunisia had three peaks, three appearances in a row. Sorry, I'm losing my place here. Three appearances in a row with a second place finish does not have any parallel with World Cup success. That's the 1960s I'm talking about there. The second strong period in 1978 saw milder success in African Cup play, but it was matched by an appearance at their first World Cup in 1978. The turn of the century, though, was the highest peak, 3 World Cup qualifications in a row, and reaching the final of the African Cup in 1996 and 2004, and taking their only title in the latter. But perhaps more impressive than that, than those peaks, is the long run of consistency that they have shown in both cups from the mid-90s. Even if it has been second tier rather than top tier, it is, without much argument, unmatched by any African team.
Yeah, I mean the consistency in the African Cup is mightily impressive. It's many cups in a row, but the World Cup, where there's only 5 spots available, for them to have the consistency in reaching the World Cup is actually arguably more impressive.
Yeah, reaching it or coming close to reaching it. I mean, we saw that even Nigeria had a weak period, you know, so it's amazing they've kept it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now it's time for us to go to the recent history, and we begin with their World Cup run in 2022.
So Tunisia received a bye into the second round, like many teams did. There, they won all their home games as well as a game on the road to Zambia. They tied in Mauritania and lost to Equatorial Guinea, though, but they were never really in danger and finished first in round 2 of 3. That set them into a playoff, and they won that round 3 of 3 playoff over Mali, winning on a single goal away and tying scoreless at home.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We talked about that when we presented Mali, the unfortunate Musa Sissoko, who, passed back to his keeper. And it turned out to be the only goal of the cup. The only goal of the series between them.
Yeah, the one own goal separating the two legs. Really unfortunate.
Yeah, that does, though, speak to one of Tunisia's strengths, which we'll talk about later, but they're very tough defensively. So just the one goal across those 2 games is not as surprising as all that.
Yeah. At the World Cup itself, they opened the tournament with a goalless draw against Denmark, but then lost to Australia. However, a win over France's B team in Game 3 was satisfying, but not enough to earn them passage, and they finished 3rd in the group stage. That loss for France didn't change the fact that they won the group, but it was certainly a straw or a feather in the cap of Tunisia.
Yeah, I recall it was a bit of a weird goal, but I can't remember it exactly. Do you?
I don't remember it exactly. I know it was scored by Wabi Khazri, who had a great tournament for them. A very dangerous player. But yeah, there's a lot of emotion. I mean, France was a former colonizer of Tunisia, so there's a lot of emotion in that game, and that really came through.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and actually, I remember what was weird. France scored an equalizer on the last kick of the game, only to find it ruled out, even though ruled out by VAR. But everyone had thought the game had ended already, so it was a bit of a mess.
Yeah, that's right.
Tunisia kind of is a bit unlucky. I think it was in 2021. Do you remember when the ref ended the game early against Mali?
I do, yeah, Mali again for Tunisia.
Yeah. So they get into some odd situations. Let's take a look at their African Cup campaign in 2023.
Yeah, so they didn't have to play in the knockout round, so they got a bye into the second round. They won all games at home in qualifying, but beat only last place Libya on the road. They did lose to second place Equatorial Guinea and tied Botswana. But nevertheless, they finished first in the qualifying group. They then came into the African Cup as a pot 1 team, but they lost on a late goal to Namibia in their opener, then tied Mali and South Africa to finish last in the group stage. So perhaps an uncharacteristically inconsistent performance by them there.
Yeah, well, if they do show inconsistency, it kind of is at that level. I think in qualifying, they're more consistent. But yeah, their cup performances are not always great.
Yeah, a bit more up and down, but yeah, to finish bottom as a pot 1 team is certainly not great.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, consistency is good, but it doesn't mean kind of consistently at a top level. It's more for Tunisia consistency at a, I would say, tier 2 to tier 1 level.
Yeah.
Let's go on to their qualification run for this cup.
Yeah, so it's actually a poor qualifying campaign coming off a group stage exit in that previous cup. They were bested by Comoros, losing in the home leg there. And they also lost at Gambia at home in the final game, which bounced them out of top spot to second place in the qualifying group behind Comoros, the shot group winners. But they did have enough points with the record of 3 wins, a draw, and 2 defeats to finish second in the group and qualify.
Yeah, I think our consistency narrative is taking a bit of a beating here. Let's see how they did in the recent World Cup qualifying campaign.
Yeah, see if they can get back on track.
Yeah.
And they did. Not all is lost, Kev. Tunisia qualified commandingly, even if they did win on late goals in 4 of their 10 games. They suffered only a goalless draw in Namibia, winning all other games. And they actually gave up no goals in the campaign, finishing first in the group, 13 points ahead of second place Namibia. So they'll be back at the World Cup, but what do you make of that 0 goals against?
That is incredible. 22 goals for, 0 goals against. I mean, the competition is fairly weak there, especially given that Equatorial Guinea kind of self-sabotaged, but amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to see, Tunisia's stingy defense against Nigeria's sometimes furious offense.
Yeah, and just a comment here. They actually had 14 different goal scorers for those 22 goals, so that in itself is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. What do you think?
I mean, I think every team would want to have a key striker you can rely on for goals, but it kind of speaks maybe more of a team ethos that Tunisia have, that rock-solid defense, and then different players popping up with goals. So maybe it'll be a good thing for them.
Yeah, I don't really see. I mean, Msakni used to be a big scorer for them, but not so much now. He scored 5 of their 11 goals in the 2023 campaign. But I guess it's something to think about, whether that's a blessing or something that's not so good. Maybe we can come back to that in the discussion, but we're going to move on to talk about Uganda here, again beginning with the broad overview of their participation and achievements.
Yeah, Uganda entered their first African Cup in 1962. That makes them the 3rd team we've talked about to do so, though it took until 1978 to join their first World Cup. Their participation in both was patchy until as late as 1994, the 1994 World Cup, from which they withdrew, but they did have a long string of consistent participation in African Cups from 1965 to 1978, before withdrawing twice in the early 80s and once in 1990. But they participated consistently in the African Cup from 1992 and the World Cup from 1998.
Yeah, in terms of achievement, Uganda has never qualified for a World Cup and only once reached the final round of qualification before 2018. That year saw them finish 2nd in the final group round and represents their best result. Their long history in the African Cup has seen qualifications for only 7 of the 27 editions that they've entered. 3 of those in a strong period in the mid-70s, and then twice in a row in 2017 and 2019. Their best results are 4th place in 1962 and 2nd place in 1978. While their best result in the cup itself is passing the group stage in 2019. All right, let's focus a little bit more on the World Cup history.
Yeah, so Uganda is far from reaching the World Cup and have only reached the final round twice. Prior to 2006, they fell at the first hurdle, going out at the hands of Zambia, Malawi, and Angola. Their first entry in 1978 was the only exception to that, but they only advanced because Tanzania withdrew. In 2006, an easy first-round opponent, Mauritius, allowed them to advance to the second round, which was a big 6-team group where they finished last. They became slightly more competitive over the next 2 campaigns, and in 2018 reaching the final round where they proved competitive, finishing second of 4, though ahead of Ghana. It's not as close as it seems, as they were 4 points behind Egypt, but it was their strongest campaign. 2026 was even better, finishing second in a 6-team group, but not one of the second place finishers to reach a playoff round, which we'll look at in a bit more detail.
Yeah, right. We will take a closer look at that. Let's go to the African Cup history, where there's a little bit more distinguishing them.
Yeah, so Uganda took 4th place in their first African Cup in 1962, but that was no great feat, since it meant last in the 4-team tournament, though they did well to reach it. They reached the tournament 4 times after that, including 3 times in a row from 1974 to 1978. They were knocked out of the group stage in the first 2 of these, the cup seemingly too rich for them as they earned only a single draw in their 6 games. However, 1978 saw them not only passing the group stage in first place ahead of Morocco and Tunisia, but beating Nigeria in the semi-final and reaching the final, where they lost to Ghana. That success tracked the rise of General Idi Amin and his 1979 fall too, as they withdrew from the following 2 competitions. It was a long drought from 1980 to 2015 with no tournament appearances until 2017. They had come close only once in 1994, before coming close again in 2012 and the next 2 campaigns after. Their successful qualification in 2017 had been coming, but they proved weak in the cup, earning only a draw in the group stage. Their 2019 qualification was even more convincing, and in the cup they finished second in the group and passed the group stage. They were knocked out at the round of 16 in the newly expanded tournament. 2021 looked to make it 3 in a row for qualifying, but a weak finish to that campaign saw Malawi qualify ahead of them.
All right, and we'll be looking at the next 2 campaigns for them here, but let's go to not to their recent history, but a summary of their strengths. So like most African teams, they are strong at home, but it's particularly so in the case of Uganda. They often go through qualification undefeated at home. Their few losses are more at the hands of middling teams, actually. South Africa, Togo, Rwanda, Tanzania, Kenya, and Angola, than to big teams like Tunisia and Egypt. And I listed all of those names because it's exhaustive. It describes everyone that they've ever lost to at home. Togo twice there. Their road record, though, leaves them short of advancing from their groups, although their recent improvement stems from better road form. Uganda, though, remains a 3rd-tier team, not reaching the world stage and really struggling to reach the African Cup. Expansion of tournaments will perhaps force a redefinition of that standard, but they do seem a bit more competitive in recent campaigns, even if their ranking suggests otherwise. And we're going to take a look at their ranking because it actually goes in the opposite direction of what I'm saying here. They've been getting lower rankings despite, I don't know, I feel like they're improving slightly.
Yeah. It's interesting with Uganda, like when we look at population, which don't always correlate exactly to a country's success, but there is some correlation. They're a bigger and more populous country than Algeria, Morocco, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Cameroon. So, it's maybe a wonder that they don't do a little bit better in the cups, than some teams we think of as big or actually have smaller populations.
Yeah, I mean, I think Congo DR is a bit bigger, but I agree. Like Congo DR is much more successful, and you think that Uganda could be at that level.
Yeah. Congo DR is bigger, but Uganda's in top 10 in population, which kind of surprised me. And yeah, such a long drought of tournaments. It just doesn't track.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now it is time to go to the recent history, and we begin with the World Cup 2022 campaign.
Yeah, so Uganda received a bye in round 1 of 3, which is just a preliminary round. They were bested by group winner Mali, and then they were embroiled in a fight in the middle, tying Kenya twice. They had no problem with Rwanda, who they beat twice, but they finished a distant second in round 2 of 3. So what do you make of that campaign?
Well, again, we do see their strong home record, although, ties is what killed them. And strong home record, I mean, they were undefeated at home, but too many ties in the campaign.
Yeah.
All right, on to the African Cup 2023 campaign.
Yeah, so here they came in as a pot 2 team, but they earned only a draw against last place Niger at home. So actually, home form kind of undoing them. And Uganda did better on the road, beating Niger and Tanzania. It seemed they'd done enough winning their last game, but Tanzania's draw in Algeria snatched the advancing spot from them. And so Uganda finished third in the qualifying group, a point behind their neighbors and rivals, Tanzania.
Wow, they'll be looking for revenge against about that here. Yeah, once again, our narrative unravels. This is not the strong home performance that we were talking about. Okay, on to the qualification campaign for this cup.
Yeah, so they tied South Africa away in their opener and then challenged them all the way until they lost to them at home in game 5. But they beat Congo and South Sudan in all their other games to finish a convincing second in the group of 4. So that's clearly enough to qualify.
Yeah, good performance there. And finally, their most recent campaign in World Cup 2026 qualifying.
So here Uganda came in as a pot 3 team, but they exchanged wins with pot 2 Guinea and then with third place finisher Mozambique. The only other drop points were losses to group winner Algeria, and they finished second in the group stage, 2nd out of 6. However, in the ranking of second place teams, they came 8th among the 9 second place finishers. So that was did not put them in the top 4 spots to advance to the playoffs, as we saw was the case with Nigeria.
Yeah, so those losses on the road, understandable, but basically cost them the advancement as a second place team there.
Yeah, but a good performance.
Yeah, a solid performance, and it's good to see going into this cup. Again, to me, that's improvement over the past, but when we look at their rankings, you'll see that it's kind of gone down. Anyway, we'll get to that, but for now, we're going to move on to our 4th team, Tanzania.
So Tanzania, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, take it away with participation there.
All right. So Tanzania joined World Cup play in 1974. They withdrew from the following tournament in 1978, didn't enter in 1990, and withdrew again in 1994. But from 1998, though, their participation has been consistent. Their first entry into the African Cup was earlier than in World Cup play in 1968. After 4 completed qualifications, they withdrew from 4 of the 9 tournaments between 1978 and 1994, but they haven't missed since. I'll let you take it talk about their achievements.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty short section in terms of achievement. Tanzania have never reached the World Cup, and in fact, they've never really come close in qualifying. But they have reached 4 African Cups over their history, most of those recent.
Yeah, with the expanded cup.
Right. And we'll keep an eye out for that because there's some question as to whether they reached it because of the expanded cup or whether their performance improved. So it's something to keep an eye on. Let's go to the World Cup, though, and take a bit of a closer look at the history there.
So from 1974 until 2010, Tanzania did no better than making it to a second round knockout. In 1974 and 1986, they were knocked out by Ethiopia and Sudan respectively, despite tying both legs at each of the campaigns. Other teams they fell to were Kenya and Ghana twice in a row in 1998 and 2002. They had dropped out of an almost completed group stage in 1994, so 2010 became their first group stage as well as their most competitive performance. They've been competitive enough since, competitive enough to pass any preliminary rounds and finish off the bottom in their semifinal round groups, coming in ahead of teams of similar strength, Gambia and Madagascar, for example. They remain far, however, from the final round. 2026 was just a single round group stage, and we'll see how they finish there shortly.
Right. Okay. And on we move to the regional tournament, their African Cup history.
So until reaching the expanded 2019 African Cup, Tanzania's single qualification had been in 1980. They had come close in 1974, but not otherwise. In qualification, they passed preliminary stages about half the time, but fell in round 2 knockouts when they did. Mildly competitive, at best, you could say. Their first group round qualification was in 1992, and they went undefeated at home, but losing all road games saw them finish last. It was similar in 1996 when they won 4 of 5 games at home, but lost all on the road. From 2000 to 2004, they lost all games over 3 campaigns, which included a group round and knockouts at the hands of Burundi and traditional foes Mauritius. After a competitive campaign in 2008, they generally finished 3rd of 4 in their groups, taking some points at the game level, but never threatening at the campaign level. 2019 saw them competitive enough to take 2nd in their group and reach the expanded cup. 2021 repeated the pattern of going undefeated at home and losing all on the road. In those 2 tournaments, they've been out of their depth, earning a single draw in 1980, but losing all games in 2019. And we'll look at the most recent ones again shortly.
Right, we'll look at that after we summarize the overall strength here. So in terms of strength, Tanzania, despite having a large population, which actually calls back to what you were talking about there, is a 3rd or even sometimes 4th tier team in Africa. A 4th tier team is defined by rarely passing a preliminary stage of qualification or by finishing bottom if the first round is a group stage, and they have had such campaigns. Over the past 10 to 15 years, though, they've become a bit more competitive than that, but though they may pass a preliminary, they generally finish in the bottom half of the group. They've never had a definable period of strength. It actually might be current times with the 3 African Cup appearances in the last 4 editions. That's partly down to the expansion of the tournament, and they have, but they have become more competitive in general and have risen about 30 points in FIFA and ELO ranking systems, and now hover around 100 in the world. They can be said firmly to be a 3rd tier team, though, and even their best performances don't really reach 2nd tier level. Okay, so that is the broader picture. Let's get down to the grain here and look at their World Cup campaign in 2022.
So Tanzania were among the bottom 28 ranked teams required to play in round 1 of 3, effectively a preliminary knockout round. Their FIFA ranking was 137, and they were paired with Burundi, ranked 148. Predictably, this was a tough battle, Both games were drawn, but Tanzania won in penalties. As a fourth-seeded team, they started well with an away win against top-seeded DR Congo. In fact, they were undefeated on the road, beating Benin and tying in Madagascar. However, home four was poor, unfortunately for them, as they beat Madagascar but lost the other two. They finished third in round 2 of 3, well ahead of last place Madagascar, but only the group winners advanced to the World Cup playoff.
Yeah, so that's a pretty typical finish for them. Well, now the structure has changed, but round 2 of 3 and third in the group, I think it was that way for the few campaigns before. Let's go to the African Cup run in 2023.
All right, so they earned points at home only with the win over Niger, but they were undefeated on the road. So again, a good road performance. Winning in Uganda to finish a point ahead of them, and earning that point, the final point they needed with a tie at home to group winner Algeria in that final game to finish second in the qualifying group. So very competitive.
Yeah, competitive, and they lost to Uganda on a goal in extra time there, so they could have done even better.
Yeah. Once in the cup, they lost to a powerful Morocco, but tied Zambia, who actually denied them their first African Cup win with a late equalizer, and then tied a pretty strong Congo DR, but nevertheless finished last in the group.
Yeah, so a good results there, or a good result against Congo DR, particularly at the game level, but at the campaign level, they seem a bit too weak for the African Cup. Do you agree?
I do agree, but picking up 2 points or points in 2 of their 3 games show that they're they're a capable team, and teams should be wary of them.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's move on to the most recent African Cup, just the qualifying for this tournament.
Yeah, that's right. So they started poorly with a home draw with 4th-seeded Ethiopia in the group stage. But they beat 2nd-seeded Guinea away after that, and they beat them again in their final game at home. And combined with the win in Ethiopia, that earned them second in the group stage. Group winner Congo DR beat them twice. So, second of 4 ahead of Guinea, and once again with a stronger road record than a home record.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out too. Looking better on the road than at home. At least we didn't. At least we didn't tote their amazing home record, only to be contradicted.
That's right.
Okay, let's go to the final one, the World Cup 2026 qualifying campaign.
Yeah, so Tanzania came in as a pot 4 team, but finished third in the group stage. They could have done better. They were in second place with 2 games to go, but they lost their final 2 matches, both at home to Niger and Zambia. And both of those teams they'd previously beaten away. So the away form again, Kev.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think the home form should be the easier part to improve. And if you look at that, and in some of those campaigns, they're really not that far away, but they just need some consistency.
Yeah, well, we do sometimes see, I mean, I got to think of Bolivia for this, that, teams can be very strong in their home form during campaigns, but then, most of the tournaments are really played away, so they're like away games. So given what we've seen with Uganda being strong at home and Tanzania actually better on the road, do you think that gives them a bit of an advantage there?
I think so. I think a team that, relies on their home form is going to struggle playing a tournament where all games are road games, like you said. So, yeah, I think for Tanzania, they don't need to be phased playing a bigger team, especially on a neutral territory. So, it's an interesting dynamic. It's not one that we come across all that frequently in Africa.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, that was something I really hadn't thought of until we were looking at these recent cups. But now we're finished with part 2 and we move on to part 3. And we're going to kind of compare the teams here, beginning with where they come from their respective pots.
Yeah, so out of the 6 teams in pot 1, Nigeria was ranked 5th out of that. So I guess you could say the bottom of pot 1. Tunisia came 3rd in pot 2, so kind of middle of the pack there. It's similar story for Uganda, being ranked 4th of the pot 3 teams, and Tanzania ranked 3rd of the pot 4 teams. So each team coming from the middle of their pot, which I guess you could say, they're not the strongest team nor the weakest team in the pot, but kind of firmly ranked where they are.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Nigeria might have been towards the middle of pot 1, but for that, some of their results in that 2026 World Cup campaign. I think they lost a few points there. Okay, let's look at their actual FIFA ranking and also their ELO ranking. We tend to think the ELO rankings are a bit more accurate.
Yeah, so Nigeria are 45th in the world and 64th in ELO. They were into the 30s in FIFA World Rankings in 2022-23, but they were never higher than 50th in ELO. That kind of surprises me a little bit. I know the performances haven't been great, but 45th in the world is lower than I would have thought.
Yeah, well, we did see in their bio that they kind of struggle at the world stage. Ghana reaching they came very close to reaching the semi-final in 2010, and especially Morocco finishing 4th. Those are good world level results, but for Nigeria, I think we've seen that as strong as they are in Africa, they're not as strong on the world stage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we'd have to kind of analyze to see. So, just curious, before we move on to Tunisia, would you tend to agree with the ELO result there of 64 or the FIFA one?
I'm probably surprised they're as low as they are in both. I think the ELO might capture some of that longer term, kind of ranking. So, which is why we kind of like it. Sometimes a team can really spike, like when they reach the final of a tournament or something.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure it's capturing how bad their World Cup campaign, because when you do something like Thai Lesotho at home, you lose a lot of points, and some of their home losses, they probably took like a 10-point drop on some of those. And we do see in December 2024 they were 74th in ELO, and with their strong finish, kind of moved up.
Yeah. When you mention it that way, maybe it's not a huge surprise, but. Yeah, they're I always think of them as one of the top teams, but their ranking doesn't necessarily reflect that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Tunisia, we'll look at them, but pretty interesting by comparison here.
Yeah, currently 46th in FIFA rankings. That's 1 point behind Nigeria, so neck and neck in the FIFA World Rankings. But 58th in ELO, so actually higher than Nigeria. So yeah, that would be an interesting point to discuss later.
Yeah, well, sorry, I made a mistake there. 58th was their ranking in June of 2025, but it's actually bumped up a bit again. Their strong campaign, improving their status. So actually 54th. Sorry about that, Connor, but 10 points ahead of Nigeria.
Yeah, well, if you look at the World Cup campaigns, that would perhaps justify that.
Yeah. All right. How about Uganda?
Uganda's ranked 82nd in the world in FIFA and 101st in ELO. They've kind of been consistently around that 100th mark in ELO, with being a bit higher in FIFA.
Yeah, I did say that over the course of from about 2015, they've gone down 30 points there. I mean, let's say 20 points. Roughly, and yet their performances seem to have gotten better. I don't know whether I'm getting something wrong there.
No, I would agree. I mean, you just look at the straight results, and terms of qualifying for tournaments and rankings in qualifying groups. That does surprise me.
Yeah, well, they did drop down to about 90th and about 110th. So they've gone up about 10 points in each over the last year or so.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, Tanzania. We're probably looking to see how they compare more with Uganda here.
Yeah, definitely. And the FIFA ranking is 107th, so 25 places back. But in ELO, they're 115th, 14 places back. So, according to ELO, it's a bit more competitive. And Tanzania has seen a rise in both ranking systems from recent years. As we've seen, they've been able to qualify for African Cups more successfully.
Yeah, well, I think a better indicator here is Tanzania finishing 1 point ahead of Uganda and qualifying for the what was it, the 2023 African Cup. So by that comparison, Tanzania is a rival.
Yeah, and that leads nicely into the head-to-head discussion.
Okay, well, let's begin with looking at Nigeria versus Tunisia.
Yeah, so this is actually quite competitive. Nigeria has 7 wins, Tunisia has 6, and they've tied 3 times besides. So a pretty close overall record between these two.
Yeah, and it kind of always has been. There's really not been a period where one dominated over the other. Their 2 recent meetings were actually in the African Cup, the 3rd place match in 2019, which Nigeria won, and then the round of 16 match in 2021, which Tunisia won.
Yeah, that sets up this tournament very nicely.
It really does. Nigeria and Uganda is next.
Yeah, well, this may be a surprise to some, but they have an even record from 5 meetings. It's 2 wins apiece and a draw as well.
Yeah, well, their most significant meeting was during Uganda's strong period there, the 1978 African Cup semi-final. I think it even came up in the history that Uganda won that one, so that was one of their wins. Otherwise, they haven't met since 2008, so I'm not sure how relevant it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we look at Nigeria versus Tanzania next.
Yeah, so also 5 meetings between them, but Nigeria decidedly in favor with 3 wins and 2 draws.
Yeah, and their last meeting was in 2017, and Nigeria bested Tanzania. They did in Tanzania, so it does show Tanzania can perhaps take points.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Tunisia versus Uganda is next.
Yeah, so here the North Africans have a perfect record, 4 wins from 4 matches played.
Yeah, and one of those wins was a big 6-0 win, but that was in 2000, and that was the last time they met in competitive play, so not that relevant. Well, relevant enough. Tunisia, the stronger team, but not that recent. We have Tunisia versus Tanzania.
Yeah, they are our recent rivals. They've only met seldomly, just twice. Tunisia has a win and a tie from those 2 matches.
Yeah, and that was in 2021 African Cup qualifying. So again, kind of intriguing that Tanzania has taken points in recent times off of Tunisia.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last one is the kind of derby, local rivalry, Uganda versus Tanzania.
Definitely, and it's a close one. It's 5 wins for Uganda, 4 wins for Tanzania, and 3 draws.
Oh wow! And they've met 4 times in recent times. We saw the 2019 African Cup. Uganda were bested there. They lost and tied. I should phrase it that Tanzania got the better of Uganda there. In the 2023 African Cup, they exchanged away wins actually. So it's actually 2 wins for Tanzania, 1 tie and one loss.
Yeah.
in the recent period, kind of reversing the overall record there. And so what this, I would say, does show is that it could be closer between them than the FIFA rank or than the rankings suggest.
Yeah, yeah. The head-to-heads in recent matches are very good kind of barometer.
Yeah. I had to ask AI several times. It seemed a bit reluctant to give me the answer on the odds, but I finally nailed it down. And this is what I got from the AI. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so this is odds to
No,
win the group.
my mistake. It's to win the group.
Yeah. So Nigeria is given about a 50% chance, 48 actually. Tunisia at 28% chance. Uganda have a 15% chance at winning the group, and Tanzania rounded out with 9.
Okay, well, maybe that's not a bad place to start our discussion, or we'll talk about Nigeria in the tournament. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, and I think between Nigeria and Tunisia, I actually think the world rankings, where they're 1 point apart in FIFA, are probably pretty accurate. I see it closer than the odds here as to who will win the group. I know Nigeria come in as a seeded team, but looking at recent form, being World Cup qualifying, Tunisia were far and away the more consistent team. So I think Tunisia can definitely challenge Nigeria at the top. I actually see it as quite close.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, to take it a step further, the ELO rankings have Tunisia 10 points ahead. I'm not sure, or 10 places is the word I should be using, 10 places ahead. I'm not sure I would agree with that, but I totally agree with you that the FIFA rankings seem representative. We're pitting Tunisia's consistency really against Nigeria's, ability to turn it on, I would say. Or we could look at it in terms of Nigeria's offense versus Tunisia's defense, which we saw proved very tough in the recent qualification.
Yeah, I think it's been a hallmark of Tunisia for sure, that defense. And I think the defense you see tends to, if you have a good defense, that might lead to greater consistency overall. Goals can kind of come and go a little bit more. Notwithstanding the fact that Nigeria were finalists from 2023 and Tunisia went out at the group stage, I think there's a lot in Tunisia's favor. I think they're normally a very tough team, and I see them being a real challenge. It could be an interesting, like you said, defense versus offense. We know Nigeria have great talent up front. Victor Osimhen, probably one of the most dangerous African players in the world.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier Tunisia's kind of maybe the contributions they get from the team as a whole, and I think that could serve them well here.
Yeah, I really think it's a fascinating matchup. Nigeria have been complacent. I don't know if that'll affect them here. You got to look at their overall history. I mean, they've only failed to advance from the group twice in their history. I guess that doesn't really affect things because they could advance in second tier between Tunisia. But Nigeria are fierce, so I think if they're on their game, they are the better team than Tunisia. And Tunisia doesn't perform as well in the cups. We've been talking about them being consistent and stuff like that. Well, they consistently reach the quarterfinals, so I guess they pass the group stage quite often too. But I don't think we're going to see the team that we saw in qualifying because they don't perform as well in the cup as they do maybe in qualifying.
Would you say that's a factor of coming up against maybe stiffer competition in a tournament compared to a qualifying group?
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm kind of talking through my hat because even as I'm speaking, I think they came second behind Comoros. So I was a bit surprised when we were doing the recent thing and how much the recent results kind of contradicted our overall narrative them being consistent. But I mean, no, I don't really mean that. You say they finished last in the group last time. They struggled with Mali, which is a fairly even team, I would say. So, I mean, Nigeria is probably a top tier team, but I'm talking about teams that aren't necessarily top tier, but at a similar level to them.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah, I think that
tournaments.
probably places a bit more of a ceiling on how Tunisia might do in this tournament. I think they'll be strong in the group stage and possibly strong in the earlier rounds. You do think Nigeria as a team are built a little bit more, you know, to go far in the tournament as they did last year. You know, it depends really on them just being able to bring it, to turn it on when they need
Yeah.
to. You know, which has been a bit of an open question recently, but the capability is there.
Yeah, that's really the issue with Nigeria is whether they do bring their best, because they're really awesome when they are performing at their best, but sometimes they just don't show up. One factor we may be overlooking here is that this tournament is taking place in the rival country of Tunisia. And do
Oh,
you
sorry,
think that's,
Morocco.
yeah, and they've had a fierce battle over the years with Morocco. That also means that a lot of their fans, it'll be like a home game, I'm sure, when they play. Do you think that's a big factor?
I think it can be. I mean, they'll be more used to the conditions of Morocco being a bit more similar to their own country. And yeah, I think they'll have lots of fans there. So, yeah, I mean, it may tilt something a little bit in Tunisia's favor. But yeah, I do think even without that, they could be quite competitive and challenge for first in the group.
Yeah, I think I already see some fans with red shirts filing in behind you there.
That's right. Yeah, they'll look like the home crowd.
Let's go to the other teams a bit. I'm going to take it as a given that Nigeria and Tunisia will pass. Will be the top two teams, and so kind of continue their record of passing the stage. The debate being more which one will be first and which one will be second. Do you think there's any chance of Uganda or Tanzania challenging that?
I think it's unlikely. I so far Tanzania, you know, have not have proved a little bit out of their depth at the tournaments, though we have seen them competitive on individual game levels. You know, and getting some surprising results on the road shows they're capable of competing with some of the bigger teams. Uganda is a bit more of a wild card for me. They're like Tanzania, a team without kind of a long history in this tournament, in total contrast to Nigeria and Tunisia. But, you know, I think they've been showing signs of trending in the right direction. And maybe the next stage for them, you know, would be to qualify and pass the group stage, either as a second or possibly as a third place team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think both of these teams have been improving. I think we made it clear with Tanzania that it's really not a big jump like being a third tier team to a second tier team, just kind of smaller degrees of improvement. Actually, Uganda kind of went backwards in 2022 and 2023 with weaker campaigns, but then kind of came back to it with their 2025 and 2026 campaigns. I'm not sure, though, that improvement for either of them would be enough to constitute a challenge here, unless you know, one of the teams above kind of lapses. But you can't really predict that they're going to lapse.
Yeah, I agree. I do think you know, Uganda, I see them as more of the third ranked team in this group. For them, beating Tanzania, of course, will be imperative if they want to have, I think, any chance of getting out of the group. But certainly taking the point here or there, you know, is possible. You know, Tunisia showed last year, you know, last tournament that they dropped points in maybe games they should have won, and Nigeria, you know, I think it's about trying to be consistent and maybe build up in a tournament without letting that complacency get the better of them. I think Nigeria are prone to shock results. They've shown that certainly recently at home. So yeah, not out of the question that Uganda takes points off either team, but I don't know it'll totally upset the apple cart and see them finishing first in the group.
Yeah. I think Nigeria is a bit more vulnerable to Uganda or Tanzania taking a point off them. Actually, Tanzania, the more we talk, the more I'm kind of favoring them as maybe the team to do it. They took 2 ties in their last one. One of them was off of Congo DR. So kind of any shakiness from Nigeria, I think, could result in one of these teams to get a draw. Now, I'm not sure what the mathematics is. We have seen teams finish on 3 points and pass, but I think it's pretty tough. So I think one of these teams, Uganda or Tanzania, will A, have to beat the other, and B, take a point off of one of the teams above them to pass. Is that necessary, do you think, or can they pass with 3 points?
You can pass with 3 points, but you're leaving it a little bit up to fate. It's not a guarantee. I think if you get the win, it's more likely that you do, but you're not leaving fate in your own hands. And I think it could be a tall order here. Tanzania have the better recent record over Uganda. They bested them for qualifying in the last tournament. And I think they're quite competitive. Could be quite competitive between the two. So even though I see Uganda as probably the stronger team, they're playing a kind of a local rival and a team that's done well against them. So it could be such that they have a self-defeating draw between them, which would be unfortunate. But Tanzania are not so far below the other teams. Even we see that in the rankings that they're going to be the whipping boys of the group.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think the worst thing that could happen is a draw between them, and then both of them would be out. I don't think I copied the orders of the games here. Would you be able to look that up?
Yeah, I have it first. So the first round sees Nigeria versus Tanzania and Tunisia versus Uganda.
Uh-huh.
The second round sees kind of the top 2 versus the bottom 2 as we see it. So that's Nigeria versus Tunisia and Uganda versus Tanzania. Key matchups for both of those.
Yeah, that's really the key set of games.
Yeah. And then the final game sees Uganda versus Nigeria and Tanzania versus Tunisia. And sometimes how a team's done up to that point influences what sort of team they field for the third game.
That's it. If we say Nigeria wins their first 2 games, then that could be a big advantage to the team that plays them, or vice versa. If Tunisia win their 2 games, they might field a B team, and that'd be a big advantage to the team below them.
Well, my hook at the start was that each team was disappointed maybe last round or in the last tournament. So maybe we could just talk a little bit about what success would look like for these 4 teams.
Oh, that's a good note to finish on. For me, I think Nigeria really wouldn't be satisfied with anything but the top 4. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that they finished in the top 3 16 times. So in some ways, even a bronze medal isn't as much of an achievement. A team that finishes second one year would obviously like to win it at the next go. So they'll be one of really a handful of teams with the chance to win it. I don't see them as kind of an outright favorite, but for them, I think reaching the final would be another successful tournament.
Yeah, that's right. And I like what you said there. They finished second last time, so it's almost like even second this time would be a bit of a disappointment. They want to win. Tunisia, this is where I think their advantage of playing in Morocco will help. I think they'll get past the group stage. I mean, they finished at the quarterfinals so many times. In 2019, they did make it to 4th place. But if you think about 4th place, that means you lost your semi-final game and you lost the 3rd place match as well. So, I mean, it is better than the quarterfinals. But I think Tunisia will be quite motivated in this cup and definitely will want to get past the quarterfinals.
I agree, given that that's been a bit of a ceiling for them, and especially given a kind of a disastrous campaign last time. I think a semi-final appearance would be good. I mean, we looked at them. They're a pot 2 team. They're kind of ranked 9th overall out of the teams competing based on the pot order. So to get into the top 4 would probably be above expectations and would be a good. They'd have to leave satisfied with that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for years I've had written in my notes. Prior to reaching the World Cup in 2018, Tunisia had a long period that was not so much weak but unglorious, and that's kind of the phrase I think of Tunisia, like a reasonably strong team but unglorious, and I think they need a bit of glory in their history.
Yeah, that's very well said.
How about for Uganda? What do you think a good result would be for them?
I think getting out of the group stage would be good. I think it will be difficult for them. They're paired with 2 pretty strong teams, and then the 4th place team, Tanzania, is not going to be an easy or a guaranteed win. So getting out of the group, I think, would be good for them. Probably above their historical average, but I think that's probably the best they could hope for.
Yeah, I like it that you put it that way, because I think for Uganda, finishing 3rd would be just not quite enough, but finishing 3rd and getting out of the group stage to the round of 16 would be that much better. Whereas I do think for Tanzania, finishing 3rd, they would be a bit more satisfied than Uganda, even if it was 3rd and they didn't pass the group stage. Do you agree?
I do. We saw that Tanzania came very close to their first ever African Cup win very recently, but they were denied by a late equalizer. So getting a first win, would be a good achievement for them, whether that sees them advance or not.
That's a really good point. Having never won in a game in an African Cup before, I think they would be pretty satisfied going home with a win. Okay, well, I think I've sat here for 15 minutes listening to you dither and not decide about what you really think. So I'm going to nail you down here and say, how is this group going to end?
Yeah, I'm going to put Tunisia top. I like their strong defense and the team they've had, and I think Nigeria's inconsistency and perhaps complacency might work against them. So Tunisia top, Nigeria 2nd, Uganda 3rd, and Tanzania last. I do see the self-defeating draw as a real possibility between those 2. But for one of their sake, it would be good if they could obviously get a win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought I was going to be the radical one, picking Tunisia ahead of Nigeria, yeah. But no, I do as well. I think the reasons you gave is the reason. I don't think Nigeria will necessarily be prone or will necessarily be complacent or inconsistent, but I just think the possibility of them is higher, and that's what we're talking about here, possibilities, because we've seen so many times that the group ends completely differently than what we predicted. But you can't predict something like a team lapsing or Tanzania putting in a fabulous performance. We're kind of going on probabilities here, and I think the probability is slightly higher for Tunisia than Nigeria. I am going to disagree with you because over the course of this discussion, I kind of have been shining more and more on Tanzania as possibly getting the better of Uganda. I think there's almost an inevitability that they will actually tie in their head-to-head, but there's still the possibility of maybe one of them getting a point somewhere else. But both of those sets could go either way. But I think I'm edging towards Tanzania over Uganda. So I'm going to say Tunisia, Nigeria, Tanzania, and Uganda.
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting that we agree on Tunisia, but I think we also would agree that, Nigeria is more likely than Tunisia to get hot and maybe ride to the final. Some of the strongest teams don't always win their groups with 3 wins from 3, but they can get hot later. So
Oh yeah, Ivory Coast, case in point last time out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, when Nigeria has started hot sometimes they've been stunning in the group stage, and then they've lost in the round of 16, or they don't bring that in. So there's a kind of a psychology behind that. I think Brazil kind of does that on purpose, where they try not to overheat in the group stage.
Yeah. Well, it all makes it very interesting to see how it
Yeah.
goes.
Well, that's our look at Group C. I'm just going to go to the graphics here. And, I should have been on these graphics all the time. But there we go. And that's it for Group C. And we will see you again for Group D.
All right. We'll see you then.
We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this media cast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.